everything that we do, it has some sort of creative flair to it, no matter what, because it's really our flair to it. Hello, and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan, and today I want to talk about creativity. Now, it's been a little bit since I've done a solo episode, and I was talking with somebody the other day and telling them that with a lot of the solo episodes, I kind of just go along with what is driving me, kind of using my sacral in the sense like, oh, I want to talk about this or I want to talk about that. And I knew that I wanted to do some solo episodes. We're traveling this summer. So I want to do some more of them while we're out traveling and be able to talk about different things that are going on, etc. But one of the main things that's really been floating around in my head for probably my entire life, but a lot recently has been creativity and how creative we are or how creative we aren't. Now, I've had different people on the show that have talked about creativity. There was an episode, I think episode number 20, with a friend of mine, old friend at this point, Joe, who has been creative in so many different ways. And we talked about kind of that bone that everybody has of being creative. There's some people I've talked to in life that have told me I'm not creative. Like I am the furthest thing from creative. And when I ask them, or we get even deeper into like, what do you think creativity is? It turns to some direction of art. Like they can't sketch or paint. So therefore they think they're not creative. But in the way that they handle problems, the way that they move through life, they are super creative. And that's what I want to talk about, that creativity in which everything that we do, it has some sort of creative flair to it, no matter what, because it's really our flair to it. I think if we look at something that has a very systematic process, you do this thing, then this happens, and then that happens after that, and then you get this result. Every single time, like a factory in a sense. That's not real creative. However, it took creativity to be able to actually get to that point. Somebody had to go, wait a minute, this all sucks. All these bottles keep dropping off the floor or falling off this thing or whatever, and we're losing money and blah, 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 blah. Somebody had to be creative at that point. Even if it was somebody 100 years ago that said, I have an idea to be able to change this a bit, like Henry Ford even. People go, I want to change this and how we do things. And then other people have taken that from there. And you can be creative in those sort of ways. You can be creative in really, really small ways, like in how you say something back to somebody, how you respond to a situation, how you react to some news and what you do with it from there. There's creativity in that. Now we can call it different things, especially in those little sections of our lives. But when we think about being creative, I know for myself, I've stunted that at different times. A lot. I have been working on music since I was probably, 12, 13, like really actually working on music. I was banging on pots and pans and dancing around with the washer and dryer as a little kid and making up my own little music. So I've always had that creativity to it. But music for me is one of those outlets that I can get different feelings, emotions. I can process things through. I can even just literally put my head down and work on mapping out drum parts for hours. So over the past, I'd say few years, I've been working on writing music. In 2020, I think when COVID hit, I really started to actually buckle back down because years before that, I was in different bands. I played in front of thousands of people a week. For the churches that I played in and different groups that I went out with to different bars and venues and studio sessions and all of that. And I took a step aside from that to be able to go get married, start a business, and do the thing that I think I needed to do because this is how we live in this society. And I started to really push my creativity to the side. So 2020 came around. I got deeper into it. I had a friend of mine help me out with some software and some new stuff that was coming out because honestly, it had been years since I'd really touched any of those things and started to work on it. And I can listen back to those first initial jams and they were terrible, like terrible. I think a couple of them were just straight mono, where like everything was right down the middle, drums, bass, guitar. It was just a whole smattering of crap. And in a few years after that, I started to really get deeper into production and mastering and took a course, met with some people and all of that. So I've been doing these things and working on my own album for the past several years. About a month and a half ago, I accidentally reformatted my hard drive that had all of my music on it. All of it was gone in an instant. And once everything was gone, I knew there's nothing to come back from this. I literally reformatted it to an ISO drive, basically a Windows disk. It was like a 3 terabyte Windows disk at that point, which is awful. No way to get it back. So at that moment, I thought, well, I could be really upset and pissed off and do things that I've done in the past, or I can be creative about this. And the creativity came to me pretty quickly of like, oh, well, I can't actually do anything. I can't go back in time. Life is not an actual video game as much as we can think it is sometimes. You can't just restart and not fuck up the hard drive. So I thought, well, I could be creative, and I can be creative in the new approach that I have. And maybe this is also a silver lining to be able to take some of those songs that I've had that I thought were close to being finished, but now I get to be able to redo them. For those of you that know me, and for those of you that listen to the podcast and you've seen some of the different like agitation marks, there was certainly agitation. I think I cried a little bit because I reformatted my whole fucking drive. It sucked. But I also knew that I'm creative and I can figure it out. And that part of the process of it was really having fun with just the process of the creativity and figuring out, how do I go about this? So I screwed up that hard drive, couldn't do anything with it, and figured I have to go through and figure out all new software, redo all the songs, all this stuff. Since then, I've gotten everything together. I'll just leave it at that. For those of you that are geeky and want to talk music with me, feel free to message me and I can share with you what software I'm using, what drums I'm using, what all the things are that I'm using. But long story short, I got it all back together and I got it to a spot where I feel pretty good about it. There are tweaks and things I need to do, especially from the production perspective of setting up my bass line and my templates. But everything's set up to where it needs to be. I'm at a point with a new version of an old song that feels 100,000 times better. And the creative process of being able to put that together, I leaned deeply into, because again, there was no turning back. Like I couldn't undo what I did to that hard drive. I could only do something going forward. And during that time, I was also going through some other situations of life that called for me to be calm, peaceful, and creative. So I'm saying these things and telling you this bit of a story, I guess, one, to remind you, don't screw up your hard drive, especially if it has a lot of important things on there, but also to understand that you can be creative in any aspect, in any situation that's going on. It's about leaning into those situations, but also understanding what can hold you back from that. Like I knew I could get really upset. And part of my previous way of being was really getting upset and beating myself up because I shouldn't have done that. And now I lost everything. And what am I going to do? And I'm sure some of you, if not most of you, can understand what that dark hole can be like, where you can just beat yourself up and all of that. That's unhelpful, totally unhelpful, but also feels different now because of the things I've done to be able to heal through that subconscious roots that I've had ripped out. And the things that I've processed through to get to the point where I go, well, I'm creative and I trust myself to be able to do this. So the purpose of this episode is to be able to talk about not only creativity, but taking the hits with creativity. And now I want to dive a little deeper into whatever you're doing for whatever your life is. If you're a full-time parent and that's your jam and that's what you feel your purpose is, if you're in a corporate world, or if you're in construction, if you're in nonprofits, if you're doing anything at all, think creatively, but trust yourself to be creative in whatever it is. If you can't draw to save your life, if people have told you you should write with your other foot, or they tell you you can't sing to save your life or anybody else's life or anything like that, that's fine. That's just not what it is for you. But if you really think about the creative process that you take in the approach that you take with your garden, or maybe with your friends, having conversations, people at work, projects, the way that you handle your house, the way that you work within any sort of situation that has any semblance of outside of just a flow, like a factory line flow where everything's just laid out. If you're not creating that, you're working within that, you still get to be creative. So this is just really a reminder that creativity isn't just one medium. In fact, it's not a medium at all. It's not just sketching or drawing, painting, playing music, or anything of the sort. It's how you interact with different situations and how you use your brain to be able to put different scenarios and situations together, and the creativity in which you use to be able to do that. I'm going to leave you with two things. The things that have really helped me was to remember that I am creative, and also that I can trust myself to not only be creative, but to be able to figure out the situation, the solutions, all of that. Even if you can't get to the end of it all by yourself, that's totally fine. You're still creative enough and resourceful enough to be able to find somebody else. And if you find that you're getting to points where you go, well, I don't feel like I can do this, then that's a great opportunity to be creative in why. Why aren't you feeling that? What do you feel is holding you back? And what is it that you actually want to do? And what is tied directly to that? Obviously, I can sit here and I can just rant off a lot of different questions and pose different scenarios, but use those little benchmarks and stepping stones as ways to be able to check in with yourself, remind yourself and love yourself. No matter what you're doing, you are creative and you can be creative. And if you need help with things, want to chat through some of this, or just want some guidance of different resources or some ways to be able to look at this and work through some subconscious blockers and just different things that are going on, feel free to reach out to me. And I really appreciate you being with me today. I hope this helps, and just be creative. Just be creative. And if you're telling me, Nick, fuck you, it's so much harder than that, I hear you and I can understand that. My challenge to you is to just give it a shot and let me know how it goes.